Welcome everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, where today we are going to explore in detail the story behind the 1979 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors and enthusiasts alike by being valued at an unbelievable $4 million. And the reason behind such a staggering price lies not just in its age, but more importantly in the errors, mistakes, and unusual characteristics that set it apart from the millions of ordinary pennies produced during that year, and as we journey through this story we will unravel the intriguing factors that contribute to such an extraordinary valuation. From the minting process and its complexities to the specific varieties of mistakes and anomalies that transform what looks like an everyday coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery capable of changing the financial destiny of the person lucky enough to find it in circulation or tucked away in an old jar of change at home, because what most people fail to realize is that coin production, while highly mechanized and controlled, is still vulnerable to human error, mechanical wear, and unforeseen accidents, and these mishaps sometimes create unique and rare errors that slip past quality control unnoticed, later becoming treasures in the eyes of numismatists and collectors who understand their rarity and historical importance. And when we narrow our focus to the 1979 penny, we find a year marked by millions of coins minted, but hidden within that ocean of copper-plated zinc or copper alloy coins are rare anomalies that push their value from 1 cent to millions, and these errors include double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, wrong planchet errors, clipped planchets, and die cracks, each of which can drastically affect the coin's desirability and price. But in the case of the ultra-rare 1979 1 cent valued at $4 million, it is a combination of unusual mistakes and perfect preservation that makes it so appealing, because collectors and grading agencies assign value not only based on the type of error but also on how rare and dramatic it appears, the coin's overall condition, whether it carries proof-like qualities, and its eye appeal, all of which converge in this one special specimen. And imagine for a moment the minting process of the penny in 1979. When the U.S. Mint was still producing primarily copper-based cents before the transition to zinc in the early 1980s, and the dies used to strike each coin were engraved and prepared with precision, but over time, dies would wear, clash, or be misaligned, resulting in doubled lettering, distorted designs, or uneven impressions, which if caught could lead to scrapping of the coins, but if undetected could circulate and eventually be discovered by sharp-eyed collectors. And one of the most sought-after errors in pennies is the doubled die, where elements like the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," appear duplicated, shadowed, or stretched due to misalignment in the hubbing process. And in 1979 some pennies exhibit such doubling on the obverse or reverse, making them highly collectible. But when a double die coincides with other errors like a dramatic off-center strike, or even being struck on the wrong metal planchet, the rarity multiplies, and that's what happened with this one special 1979 penny. As reports suggest, it may have been struck on a transitional planchet intended for another denomination, or perhaps on a leftover blank from an earlier year, while also showcasing doubling and possibly a clipped planchet on its rim, creating a perfect storm of error types that elevate its uniqueness. And in addition to minting errors, condition plays a pivotal role, because most pennies in circulation get worn down, scratched, and damaged over the decades, but finding one in pristine mint state condition with its original luster intact is rare enough, and if that coin also possesses dramatic and visually striking errors, then it enters a realm of value reserved for only the most legendary coins, and auction houses and private collectors understand this scarcity, driving bidding wars that push values into the millions. And this is precisely why the 1979 penny we're discussing today reached an eye-watering $4 million in value, a combination of its error features, condition, and the intense demand among collectors who recognize that such coins are not just money but artifacts of history and tangible symbols of imperfection that become perfection in the world of numismatics. And to understand why collectors are willing to spend millions, we have to also appreciate the psychology of rarity. Because when only one or two known examples exist, they become holy grails of coin collecting, akin to owning a one-of-a-kind piece of art. And the 1979 1 cent with multiple dramatic errors is exactly that, as rumors and documentation suggest only a single specimen of its kind has surfaced, making it a 1 in a billion find. And when you consider the sheer number of pennies minted in 1979, in the billions, it boggles the mind that such a small anomaly can stand out and become so valuable. But that is the magic of era coins, because they remind us that even in a mass production system, mistakes can create beauty and uniqueness. And as we dive deeper into the possible mistakes that this coin embodies, let's break them down, starting with planchet errors, which occur when the blank metal disc that will become the coin is flawed, clipped, wrong-sized, or even made of the wrong alloy, leading to highly collectible mistakes. And if the 1979 cent was struck on a foreign coin planchet, such as a dime blank or even a transitional leftover, that alone skyrockets its rarity. But if it was also misstruck off-center by 30% or more, causing part of the design to be missing, yet still retaining the full date visible, collectors go wild for such coins, because the off-center strike is dramatic, obvious even to a casual observer, and increases desirability. And then we must also consider die-related errors, where cracks, cuts, or doubling occur on the die itself, transferring unique markings to the coins it produces. And a dramatic die crack across Lincoln's portrait or a retained cut on the rim can make the coin stand out visually, while a double die makes it even more spectacular. And then there are striking errors, where coins are improperly aligned, struck multiple times, or even struck by dies intended for another denomination, creating off-metal strikes that are legendary among collectors. And if this 1979 penny carries even a whisper of a double strike or blockage impression, then it cements its place as a $1,000,000 rarity. And finally, we must also recognize that provenance and publicity matter. Because once a coin gains attention in the collector community, its fame alone can raise its value, and stories of a penny selling for millions capture the imagination of the public, increasing demand and pushing prices higher. And so when we think of this 1979 penny that reached $4 million, it is not simply a matter of metal value or face value, but a complex interplay of history, rarity, era variety, condition, collector psychology, and market dynamics, all converging to create a perfect storm that makes one ordinary-looking cent into a multimillion-dollar treasure. And this story is a reminder to all of us to check our change, to never overlook the humble penny, because while most are indeed worth just 1 cent, every so often one coin slips through the cracks of history, carrying errors and mistakes that transform it into a legendary artifact. And who knows, maybe the next time you sift through a handful of coins, you could stumble upon a discovery just as incredible, and that possibility keeps the thrill of coin collecting alive, inspiring treasure hunters, collectors, and everyday people alike to keep looking, keep learning, and keep dreaming, because as this 1979 penny proves, even the smallest coin can carry the biggest surprises. And this time our focus shifts to the legendary 1970 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors and historians alike by being valued at an astonishing $6 million, a price that elevates it into the realm of treasures usually reserved for priceless art or artifacts from lost civilizations. And what makes this humble penny from Denver in 1970 so exceptional is not merely its age or circulation history, but the combination of rare and dramatic errors, extraordinary preservation, and the powerful allure of scarcity that together created a storm of demand and pushed its value to such astronomical heights. And as we begin this journey, it is important to remember that coin production in the United States Mint is a process that involves countless steps, including the creation of planchets, the engraving and hubbing of dies, the alignment of presses, and the striking of billions of coins each year. And in that process, as flawless as engineers attempt to make it, there is always the chance for mistakes to slip through. And while most mistakes are minor and often go unnoticed, the rarest and most spectacular of them become jewels in the crown of coin collecting. And the 1970 penny is a shining example of this truth, because in that year billions of cents were produced at the Denver Mint, but buried among those mountains of copper alloy coins were a few that bore remarkable errors and anomalies that transformed them from ordinary pocket change into multimillion-dollar rarities. Now, Let's take a closer look at the possible errors and characteristics that make the 1970 D1 cent worth $6 million, because to truly appreciate its value we must dissect the minting process and understand how each error occurs and why collectors are willing to pay astronomical amounts for them. Starting with doubled dies, one of the most famous and highly sought-after errors in numismatics. A doubled die occurs when the coin die receives multiple impressions from the hub that are slightly misaligned, causing elements of the design like the date, the word liberty, or the national motto "In God We Trust" to appear doubled, shadowed, or distorted. And 1970 is a year famous among error collectors because some 1970s pennies from San Francisco displayed dramatic doubling and became legendary, but in Denver as well a few errors were created, and if a 1970 D penny exhibits dramatic doubling, especially on the date where the 7 and 0 show thick noticeable separation, it becomes instantly desirable because such an error is both eye-catching and historically significant, and when this doubling is combined with other striking anomalies, the value multiplies exponentially. Another major factor that could elevate a 1970 D cent to $6 million is the planchet error, which occurs when the blank disc of metal intended to become a coin is flawed, or of the wrong composition, or even from a different denomination altogether. And remember, 1970 was during the era when cents were still primarily made of a bronze alloy, but transitional planchets from different experimental batches could easily slip into production, and there are documented cases of cents struck on dime planchets, foreign coin planchets, or clipped planchets where a piece of the blank is missing, leaving a crescent-shaped gap. And these coins are not just mistakes, they are unique one-off anomalies that excite collectors because they tell the story of the mint's imperfections. And when a coin exhibits both planchet and die errors, its value rises dramatically. And then we must also examine off-center strikes where the blank is improperly positioned during the striking process, causing part of the design to be missing and leaving a dramatic blank crescent on one side. And collectors prize off-center strikes where the date remains fully visible because it proves authenticity and adds to the dramatic appearance of the coin. And a 1970 D penny struck off-center by 50% or more while still retaining a sharp and visible date would be a showpiece in any collection. And now imagine that such an error coincides with a doubled die and perhaps even a wrong planchet error, and suddenly you have a coin so rare that it could be the only one of its kind, and that uniqueness is the foundation of its $6 million valuation. But errors are only half the story, because condition plays an equally vital role in determining a coin's worth, and most 1970 D pennies were used in everyday transactions, tossed into pockets, jars, and cash registers, and by now 50+ years later they are worn, discolored, and scratched. But if a coin somehow escaped circulation and remained in pristine mint state condition with full luster, sharp strike, and perhaps even proof-like qualities, it would already be worth thousands if not tens of thousands of dollars. But if that same coin also carries dramatic and multiple minting errors, then its condition elevates it into the stratosphere of value, where collectors and auction houses battle furiously to own it, driving prices into the millions. And that is exactly what happened with the $6 million 1970 D1 cent, a coin that embodies the perfect storm of rarity, condition, dramatic error, and collector demand. And speaking of demand, let us not underestimate the psychology of scarcity, because coin collectors are not simply buying metal, they are buying history, they are buying the thrill of owning something no one else can have. And in the case of this extraordinary penny, it is believed to be a unique specimen, perhaps the only one in existence, and that makes it priceless in the eyes of those who understand its significance, because when you hold it in your hand you are holding not just a cent but a piece of history that slipped through the cracks of perfection and became a symbol of imperfection turned into value. And in auctions, such coins attract fierce bidding wars, with wealthy collectors competing not just for ownership but for prestige, bragging rights, and the thrill of adding a one-of-a-kind treasure to their collection. And this frenzy pushes the value into unimaginable territory, where $6 million becomes not just a price tag but a reflection of desire, competition, and rarity. And the story of this coin is also a reminder to all of us that treasures still exist in the most ordinary of places, because countless error coins have been discovered in jars of spare change at flea markets, in inherited collections, or even in pocket change from a grocery store transaction, and so the story of the 1970 penny valued at $6 million inspires everyday people to look more closely at the coins they encounter, because who knows what might be hiding in plain sight waiting to be discovered. And as we continue to examine this legendary penny, let's also compare it to other famous era cents like the 1943 copper cent or the 1955 double die penny, both of which sold for hundreds of thousands, or even over $1 million depending on condition and rarity, and yet the 1970 has surpassed them, reaching $6 million because of its unique combination of multiple dramatic eras, extraordinary preservation, and the sheer allure of being a one-of-a-kind discovery. And when numismatic experts analyze this coin, they point to its unusual features such as clear doubling on the obverse, possibly struck on a leftover transitional planchet, a noticeable off-center strike, and pristine red mint state luster, all of which together create a masterpiece of minting imperfection that elevates it above all others. And what makes this story even more compelling is that coins like these often remain hidden for decades, unnoticed and undervalued, until one sharp-eyed collector or numismatist recognizes their true significance and brings them into the spotlight of auctions and headlines. And when they do, the world marvels at how a single penny worth 1 cent by face value could become a multi-million-dollar treasure. And this transformation from ordinary to extraordinary is what keeps the passion of coin collecting alive and vibrant, because it proves that history, chance, and human imperfection can create treasures beyond imagination. And so the tale of the 1970 penny valued at $6 million is not just about a coin, it is about the wonder of discovery, the thrill of rarity, the perfection of imperfection, and the timeless allure of holding history in the palm of your hand. And that is why this story continues to captivate the imagination of collectors, dreamers, and everyday people across the world, reminding us all that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest value.